It's fascinating today to be in Parliament House, socially distancing, but to have a chat with David Knopf, who leads our team of scientists, researchers and the all-important operational staff at Davis Station in Antarctica, and to have a bit of a chat about what life is like there during this extraordinary period of the coronavirus, and to hear David's reflections on isolation and learning to do things differently in unusual working environments. So thank you for having a chat with me today, David. A question that I'm sure you're expecting: what's the weather like outside?
Morning, Minister. Happy to be here. Look, this morning, so it's a nice and chilly minus 16 degrees here at Davis outside the window. It's still pitch dark here. The sun not coming up until about 9 o'clock this time of year, which has its benefits because in a couple of weeks our dawn service for Anzac Day will actually be at 10 a.m, which is great. A nice little dusting of snow overnight as well, so that gives it that nice Antarctic look in the mornings. So it's a lovely day, not much wind, which helps.
And what's the weather like?
How are you?
Well, the weather in Parliament House is always the same, and I'm sure it's an even 20-something degrees. And it's a very curious building at the moment. Now, that's outside. What's it like inside?
So inside here, probably similar to Parliament House there, a nice and warm sort of 19 or 20 degrees. We do have an issue with like really dry air here, so we have to run humidifiers throughout the buildings to keep keep the sort of ambient air a nice sort of humid temperature for humans to exist. But inside, great living conditions. We've got a really good kitchen, great chef, amazing facilities, recreation, gym, all those sorts of things. So inside here at an Antarctic station these days is actually quite nice.
And obviously you are aware of coronavirus, its effect on the world, its effect on Australia. What's its effect in Antarctica? We know there are no cases there and we're determined that there won't be any, but what does it feel? How is it different?
So the coronavirus impact on Antarctica has been quite interesting. So obviously we are the only continent without it, and that's through the actions of a number of people back home at the Antarctic program and the Department of Environment and the Australian government to keep us safe, and the other nations around Antarctica as well have done a really good job of making sure the continent remains free. It has had some impacts on us. Certainly when we started to hear about it early in January, it had an impact on who came south, and we started to limit expeditions coming down for the tail end of summer. And then it started to have an impact with our repatriation of our summer team back to Australia. When the Aurora Australis was here at the end of February or mid-February to come and pick them up, it actually had to wait out in the harbour off Davis here for another day just so it could clock up the 14 days. So it's quite funny to have the ship there, everyone ready to go to put the cargo and passengers on, and we had to just sit there and look at it for a day, which was great. We got some great footage and great photos of its last trip here to Davis, but that was where it started to have an impact on us at the tail end of summer.
So I made the decision in conjunction with the division that we would only have 150 expeditioners. We will only have 150 expeditioners going south for the 2020-21 season. What difference will that make, I suppose, to how you all live, work and go about your business?
So the decision to limit the amount of expeditioners coming south for next season, for 2021, that will have a significant impact on the size and the number of expeditions we get here at station. We can hold 93 expeditioners here at Davis. I think next season we're looking at around 40 or 50, so there'll be a lot less people for me to manage and for us to cook for and manage. It will have an impact on some of the other programs and the long-term science, but I think the importance of keeping the stations and the continent coronavirus free and manageable is much more important at this point and where we're at this year. And certainly a lot of the planning, everything that happens here has to be so long range, and really yourself, myself, no one around the world knows how the rest of this year will play out. So I think that decision makes sense, and it will have a bit of an impact, but we'll recover the year after, and it keeps going. It's a very slow cycle here for building and projects and science. So the Antarctic program's kind of used to situations like this happening, where one season you might not be able to get the ship in due to sea ice or aviation and those things. So we always say to remain flexible, and this year has probably put us to the test on that one more than ever.
So if I can ask you, just leading on from your answer, a bit about the Antarctic mindset, as I call it, and your background in the Australian Army and in Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And of course, where you are now has equipped you well to dealing with isolation and the effect it has on people. And while I'm not suggesting that the average Australian is in a similar situation, many are experiencing a type of isolation that they had not prepared for and aren't used to. What advice and what insights could you offer?
Well, it's an interesting thing to us, in terms of us being prepared for isolation and the comparison to back home at the moment. I mean, in a lot of ways, the 24 of us here for winter, we were 100% prepared to do this, and we had a lot of time to talk to our families and do training and be ready for the isolation of an Antarctic winter. But back home, everyone kind of, at coronavirus, the restrictions and everything escalated so quickly that people went from being at work 1 week to locked in their houses and only able to go out for one run, one walk with a dog, and go to the shops once a day. So it was kind of forced upon everyone. But the main thing I'd say from my background as well, I have experienced a number of lockdowns and restrictions and times where you are stuck indoors, is to really do it your way. Don't get too wrapped up in making sure. Everyone will tell you to set a routine and focus on fitness, and here's your home workout, and you have to read books and you have to do this. Do it your way. Focus on what you're happy to do, mixing it up, staying flexible, variety being the spice of life when you're stuck inside as much as it is outdoors. Take the time to get outdoors when you can within the restrictions that are in place at the moment, but making sure that, you read books, you clean the house, you play with the dog, you call friends and family you haven't called before, and take that time to really make the most of the opportunity. I think one of the other mantras I've tried to live by is, make the most of the situation you're in. So if you're stuck indoors, make the most of that. Don't sit there worrying about what you do or trying to be outdoors. If you can't do it, don't worry about it. Just do what you can do, which is make the most of being indoors with your friends and family, or even by yourself. You can, read a book and watch a movie, work out, do all sorts of things.
I know this is a bit of a blue sky question, but how do you think Australia and perhaps even the bases in Antarctica, but people, Australians, will be different on the other side of this?
That is a good question. That's probably something that we're a little bit anxious or worried about, is how Australia might have changed and might be different when we get back. We're of course keeping a close eye on everything back home, but for us to understand what it is like, looking at the photos, I'm from Melbourne, looking at the photos of Flinders Street or De Grave Street, and there's no one there. Even just trying to get a sense of what that might be like when we get back, and that we've kind of missed out on all of this. So we're down here happily shaking hands and patting each other on the back and hanging out in groups of up to 24 regularly. We can run group fitness classes and all sorts of things here. But if we get back and it's all back to normal, but we've kind of missed out on this, it could be quite strange for us. And of course, no one knows how long the restrictions and some of those things will be in place, and what legacy coronavirus will have on, on humanity for the next while.
Yes, certainly there are a lot of unknowns ahead of us. However, what I can tell you and I know is that all Australians really support the work of our expeditioners, and it must be quite difficult when you've got so much change back home and family and friends facing that anxiety. So I just want to pass on my very best wishes, not just mine, but the department as a whole, and in fact the Parliament as a whole, to everybody there. I've just come back upstairs from the introduction of the latest bill today, which is to job keep, if you like, to keep everybody working throughout this. And I know it'll be really important, but it's huge cost economically and financially to the Australian economy, but a very necessary one. So sitting in this very isolated Parliament where I could reach out and still there'd be 2 arms lengths between me and the next person really has brought it home. So thank you, David, and I have great admiration for what you're doing, your team, and the men and women who are supporting the scientific and research effort in Antarctica. Thank you.
No, thank you. We appreciate your thoughts and support from back there as well. It's something that, the Antarctic program, we're kind of used to being stuck down here and having to be isolated and go through sort of all the different changes and restrictions and everything, and it's interesting to see it sort of playing out back home as well. So we really appreciate your thoughts and interest in what we do down here, and it's been great to answer a lot of questions, certainly this week and around how we do it, how we deal with being stuck inside for long periods of time and with the same people day in, day out. It can get challenging, and it's interesting to see the rest of Australia and the rest of the world even having to experience that.
Fantastic. Thank you.